All right, let's get a check on most of the big performers in 2025 when it comes to stocks listed on Nigeria's stock market. There we have Omete in Kotaria, founder Net Worth Investor Club. Let's try this again. Can you hear me? Great to have you.
Loud and clear, Laddie. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. That's music to my ears. And so, looking at the top gainer of 2025, NCR. Nigeria, that's in software and IT services. It gained 1,354% this year alone. That's a lot of rise, for this stock. Talk to me about this one. Did you see this coming?
Actually, funny enough, I had it on my watch list for 2025 as at when I prepared my list on the 3rd of January this year. It was at 5 naira per share there. But I didn't see this coming, really. I just knew that infotech will blossom, and that sector has NCR that has been there for quite a while. But when it comes to this sort of performance, I never saw it coming because there was really no fundamentals to back up what has happened. The only thing I could find out was that they have some sort of limited shares outstanding, which could have made it possible for maybe a majority stakeholding activity going on. And so the price just kept building up as we just saw it happen so far.
That's quite interesting. This is quite quite a performance, right there. How do you spot this kind of stocks before they make this kind of moves? Because, most of the time, we see investors get late to the party and end up, buying the top of these kind of rises. How do you spot them early?
Actually, the first things to do is to have your own strategy of picking stocks, especially defining first what sort of investor you are. There are basically two types of investors in the market, long-term and short-term investors, who are basically referred to as traders. Okay, so if you are a long-term investor, there is a way to identify the kind of stocks that you should be positioning in. And it has to do with basically their fundamental performances in terms of earnings report up to the 3rd and 4th quarters per year, depending on what is already available to the public in terms of disclosures, their earnings reports. So if you find stocks doing so well, comparing their metrics, earnings per share, price to earnings ratio, and all that, possibly you go deeper to finding their intrinsic value and book value, you can be able to identify some stocks that are really doing well but haven't been spotted by the market. And in a matter of time, these metrics that looks healthy will eventually lead to good dividend payouts, and then from there the market begins to get attracted or begin to position themselves to also be a part of this.
All right, so looking at this performance now, 1,354% already gained at this point. Lucky investors are getting early, smiling to the bank at this point. Does this still have legs going into 2026, or is this the one you just stay away from so you don't end up buying the top?
Actually, like I stated earlier, it has a relatively lower shares outstanding, meaning it's one stock that is also very illiquid, number one. Number two, you don't chase a flying stock if you want to preserve your capital, right? This has gone too far with insufficient fundamentals to back up the performance, and so that spells danger along the way. They have to come up with performances to match the price appreciation that we have seen. So anyone who is already late to the party, you better stay out to avoid losing money, because eventually what happens next is profit taking, and then you just might get dumped on as far as this one is concerned.
All right, so looking at other great performance, we have Beta Glass, 470% year to date, M Benefits, Mutual Benefits Assurance, 421%, Champion Breweries, 344, Illa Lakes, 341. Which ones stand out for you here? What do you think, push Beta Glass, 470% rise this year?
Well, Beta Glass is a perfect example of what I just explained. That was also on my watch list for 2025. As at January this year, it made that list at 64 naira per share then, and then rallied all the way to over 400 naira per share before dropping towards the 300 naira range it is right now. The fundamentals were excellent. Everything looked perfect as at the beginning of the year. But now that performance is quite justified. In any case, it's also late at this point.
All right, so at this point, which are the laggards you would say investors should keep an eye on, going into 2026?
Wow, there's quite a lot of them. I would call them laggards with you based on the fact they should be performing better than they are now in terms of price performance. And when it comes to very sound fundamentals, we have the likes of Aradel, which continues to trade so low at below 700 naira. I think it should be selling for around, it closed yesterday around 670 naira per share. People recall Aradel got listed at around 700 naira per share, appreciated to over 800 before eventually crashing all the way down to 400 and below. But as we see it, things are looking very good for such a stock because of the two major acquisitions that they made in the course of this year. And looking at their third quarter performance, all the way to their third quarter performance, I can tell from the integrated assets involved, they've already garnered up to 70 naira per share in terms of earnings per share. That means Aradel is set to make up to 800 naira per share when the fourth quarter result is out. Definitely, that means that stock should be selling for nothing less than 1,000 naira per share or more.
Quite incredible analysis there on Aradel. I'm sure there are other stocks that we should also keep an eye on and investors at this point. But I guess 2026 is going to be a very interesting year with what we've seen so far, in 2025. Thank you so much, Omite Nkotaria, founder, Net Worth Investor Club. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much, Ladi.